All right, I'm going to give a quick demo of how to use this website to plan a dive. So I'm going to plan a dive where I want to go down to 60 meters, and I'm going to stay there for 30 minutes, and then I'm going to come back up and do some deco. So let's plan that dive. So the first step is I need to pick what is my starting gas. I got all the GUE standard gases over here on the left, or I can type in a custom mixture. And I basically want to pick a gas that's going to get me down to 60 meters. As I click through them, I can see the max depth of each gas kind of shows here. So I want to pick one that's going to get me down to 60 meters. Not that one. Trimix 1845. There's a max depth for oxygen partial pressure 67 meters and an equivalent narcotic depth of 96 meters. So that looks good. Let's pick that one. And now I'm on the main screen. I got these boxes here will eventually give me a bunch of pretty graphs, but first I got to start building out my dive plan. Over here is where I'm going to build out my dive plan, and I got to start adding some segments to it. So let's add the first segment. I want to go down to 60 meters. I'm going to go down to 60 meters, and every time I kind of add a segment, what I got to do is I got to choose what depth do I want to go to. Once I get there, would I like to switch to a different gas? And then how long do I want to stay at that depth? And I basically just keep repeating this until my dive plan is done. So I want to go down to 60 meters. I can see it's going to take 3 minutes to descend at this descent rate. My oxygen partial pressure at 60 meters is going to be 1.26. That looks good. And the equivalent narcotic depth would be 23 meters. I'm going to go down to 60 meters on Trimix 1845. So it's an equivalent narcotic depth of 23 meters on air. If I start punching in big numbers, we'll start getting some warnings and errors here. All right, 60 meters. And I want to stay on the current gas when I'm down there. If this was a deeper dive, I might have a separate travel mix and bottom mix. And then how long do I want to stay there? I want to stay there for 30 minutes. And I can see here kind of what happens to my deco ceiling, depending on how long I stay there. After 30 minutes, I will have a deco ceiling of 21 minutes, or 21 meters. So let's save that. Now I get some charts. We'll look more at the charts in a minute, but the top one is kind of show my dive plan. I descend down to 60 meters, stay there for 30 minutes, and then ascend back to the surface. I'm getting an error because I have no deco stops in my dive plan right now, so I'm blasting through the ceiling. So let's add some deco stops. So at the top box here, I can see some of like my stats for my current kind of where I am in my dive. I'm at 60 meters. I've got a ceiling of 21 meters. And really, the first thing I need to do is pick what depth I want to ascend to. So I'm really looking at this field. What is my ceiling? 21 meters. Let's make it a round number and say 25 meters. Do I want to switch gases? I could play around with my gases here. It's going to calculate an optimal deco gas. You can read the tooltip to see how it calculates it, but it basically maximizes oxygen content and minimizes helium content. But that would be like a custom mixture. If I go to standard gas, right, maybe I want to go, nitrox 32, and that would actually work at 25 meters. If I wanted to pick nitrox 50, that wouldn't work. The PO2 is too high for 25 meters. So maybe for my first deco stop, maybe I'll switch to nitrox 32. And then I want to pick how long I stay at this deco stop. I can see how my ceiling kind of changes over time, and I can see for the first 20, 30 minutes or so, it kind of goes up pretty quickly and then plateaus out. I can also see here some kind of key kind of like thresholds for how long I stay here. If I were to stay on nitrox 32 at 25 meters for 36 minutes and 40 seconds, my deco ceiling will change to 6 meters, which would enable me to switch to pure oxygen. Which is probably what I want to do. So let's make that an even 40 minutes. I'll save that. I'll come back in. I'll add another deco stop. Now my ceiling is 6 meters, so let's go up to 6 meters. And at 6 meters, I want to switch to oxygen. I get a warning here just telling me that 1.6 is not good for the working part of the dive, but it's okay for the deco part of the dive, which is what we're on. And I can see here that 35 minutes and 20 seconds will finish off my deco. Let's put a bit of margin in there, and let's just call it 40 minutes. All right, now I have a valid kind of safe dive plan. There's no errors at the top. So let's look at what all these charts are telling me. The first one is just showing basically my dive profile, my depth as it changes, my deco stops, and this red part is the ceiling. If I'm doing my deco plan properly, I should be kind of like bouncing up the ceiling as I go here. This next one is just graphing my oxygen partial pressure over the course of the dive. You kind of don't want it to pass this orange dotted line on the working part of the dive, and then on the deco part of the dive, you want it to stay below this red line. There's another red line down here for hypoxic mixtures. And this all looks good. This is graphing my equivalent narcotic depth over the course of the dive. As I've heard some people, GUE wants it to be below 30. I've heard some other people use 40 meters as a target. But I'm nowhere near either of those, so that looks good. And then I just get some graphs to basically show the 16 tissue compartments and how their tissue loading changes over the dive. This first one is the ceiling of each of the 16 individual tissue compartments. And you can see the fast tissues kind of set my ceiling for my first deco stop, and then the slower tissues are setting my ceiling later. And then these bottom two is just the tissue loading of nitrogen and the tissue loading of helium over the course of the dive. Helium loads up and off gases a lot faster than nitrogen, and you can kind of see that in these charts. And that's pretty much it. Everything in here kind of has lots of tooltips kind of explaining everything, so hopefully it's mostly self-explanatory.